Hello everyone. Is my voice audible, guys? So today is our session number 2 on REST API development using Node and Express.js. Okay, guys. So today is our session number 2. So let's recap what we have learned in the session number 1. So when it comes to session 1, in session 1, we have understood what is REST API. We discussed what is API. Then I have discussed why we have to develop API. And then we started developing our API. For that, we have used Express.js. So we have seen how to install Express. We have seen how to create HTTP server. Then we have seen how to create our endpoint. And in that, we have created get endpoint. And we tested our API using browser. This is what we have learned in the last class. Okay, in today's session, we will continue this part. So in last class, if you remember, we have used some terms like HTTP server. This is the first term we have used. Then we have used a term called request. Then I have used a term called response. I told that using Express package, we are creating HTTP server. And we have seen also how to create HTTP server using this Express package. And once HTTP server is created, then through our browser, we are sending the request. Through our browser, we are sending the request to this HTTP server. And based on our request, HTTP server is processing it. And then it is sending some response back to us. So HTTP server is sending some response back to this browser. Okay, in very short, I'm explaining what we have done in the last class. So let's do that part right now, and then we will proceed with the next part. So if you want to create API, what is the first step we have to do? First step is we have to install the Express package. This is the first step we have to do. So for that, we have to open our VS Code. So before opening VS Code, let's create one folder. So I think already I have created the folder. Let me just check. Yeah, so here I have one empty folder. There is nothing in this. So I will open this folder directly in our VS Code. Now that folder is open. Now here, I want to install Express package. For that, open your terminal. So here I have opened my terminal, and simply we have to use the command npm install express. The moment we hit this command, one folder will be created and two files will be created. So one folder is created, two files are created. In last session, I have explained what is this folder and what are these two files. Now, once this folder and two files are created, now we can create our own JavaScript file. So I am creating a file called server.js. As I have mentioned, with whatever name you want, you can create your file. So I am creating here a file called server.js. So one file is created. Now, inside this file, if you want to create HTTP server, okay, let me just close this terminal. Yeah. So after installing after installing this Express, second step is we have to create HTTP server. So to create this HTTP server, we required this express. So for that, first we have to import that express module. So using this require, we have to import that express module. When we import this express module, it returns one object to us. So we can hold that object in one variable. Now this express we have to initialize. So to initialize that express, this object we have to call like a function. It returns one more object to us. So we can hold that object in one more variable. Now this object contains one predefined function called listen. So using app.listen function, we can create one HTTP server, and internally that HTTP server will start. So this listen function will take care of creating HTTP server, and internally it will start that HTTP server as well. But to this listen function, we have to pass two arguments. The first argument is on which port number we want to run our HTTP server. So this time I am saying 5000. Run my HTTP server on 5000. And once successfully our HTTP server created port number, then second argument, that is one callback function, it will be called. Here I am adding console.log and simply I will say server started. So remember, using this app.listen, we are creating the HTTP server. We are starting our HTTP server on this port number. So this app.listen will do two things. This app.listen function does two things. What are those two things? First, it will create HTTP server. Creates HTTP server. And once HTTP server is created, then it will run. It runs HTTP server on provided port number. So here to this listen function, we are going to assign some port number here. So on this port number, it will run our HTTP server. These are the two things are done when we call this app.listen function. So what is this HTTP server? What is this HTTP server? So basically, HTTP server is a small software program which is written in JavaScript by your Express.js developers. This HTTP server is used to handle your request which is coming from client. It is used to handle request and response which is coming from client and which we have to send from this HTTP server. So it's very simple. What is HTTP server? This is one of the interview question. So here we have to explain that it is a simple software program which handles request and response. Which handles request and response. So if you want to send any request from your client, and if you want to handle that request, and if you want to handle the response which you are going to send back to the client, then we require HTTP server. Without HTTP server, you cannot handle request and response. What is this request and response? Yes, in last session, I have explained about request and response. So request is nothing but it is a format of data which we send from client application to the server application. It is a format of data which we send from client app, nothing but client application to server application. In the same way, what is response? So it is a format of data sent from server application to client application. To client application. Okay. So many people have confusion with this request and response. So basically request and response are nothing but just a format of data. So when you are sending the data from one application to another application, you have to follow certain format. That format name is request and response. So format will change from sending the data from client to server and from server to client. In coming sessions, maybe in the next session only, I will explain you the format of request. I will explain you the format of response. I will show that. So what is the difference between request format and response format? How it will be? That part I will show you. So HTTP server is a simple software program which handles request and response. Request is nothing but format of data. Response is also format of data. It is a format of data which is sent from client to server. This is the format of data which is sent from server to client. So now here we have created our server and we have started our server on this port number. So let's execute this line. For that, let's go to our terminal. So I'm opening my terminal in command prompt, and here simply I can use a command node space our file name, in which we have written the code to create server and start the server. The moment I press enter, here see I got one message, server started, and now it is waiting. Now once server is created, now here we have to create endpoints. We have to create endpoints. Next step is here. After creating HTTP server, third step is create endpoints. Create endpoints. Now, what is this endpoint? What is this endpoint? We have to understand. Endpoints are nothing but resources in your server side application or backend application. Endpoint represents resources. So here we can say that endpoint represents resources on backend application. Backend, or you can say server side application. Now, what is the meaning of resources? Resources are nothing but resources represents data or a functionality of your application. Resources are nothing but it represents data or functionality. For example, suppose if you are creating e-commerce application. E-commerce application. Now in this e-commerce application, we have to implement lot of functionality so that we can manage the data. For example, in e-commerce, you have to manage products and you have to implement some functionality for products, like user can access products information, any admin can add new products, user can access the details of single product, user can add that product in the cart, user can remove the product from the cart. All these are the functionality which are related to products. In the same way, in your e-commerce application, you can have orders. Orders are nothing but whenever a user does certain shopping, when he purchases certain products, for the products, one order will be created. So order contains the information of all the products what he purchased. Not only product information, it contains lot other information also. It contains your product information. It contains user address information. So for orders also, there will be certain functionality. Order should be created. Order should be removed. Order should have the data. We have to access the data of certain order. Like this, some functionality we have to create for orders. Some functionality we have to create for products. Like this, we can have users. Like this, we can have something called payments. We can have addresses. We can have employees. So like this, lot of modules will be present in your e-commerce application where we have to handle their data, we have to handle their functionality. Now this entities of which we are going to handle the data and functionality are called resources. Now all these are called resources. These are the resources of your e-commerce application. So resources are nothing but which represents data or functionality on that data. Okay, so in the same way, endpoints are nothing but they represent resources. Now for every resources, we have to create some endpoints. So the first step is you have to create, you have to install Express package. Next, you have to create HTTP server. Then third is we have to create endpoints. Now we can create 4 types of endpoints. There are 4 types of endpoints. There are 4 types of endpoints. And those endpoints are the first one, get endpoint. Second one is post endpoint. Third one is put endpoint. Fourth one is delete endpoint. There are 4 types of endpoints: get, post, put, delete. For every resource, we have to manage these 4 endpoints. So here I'm adding one more point. For every resource, we have to manage, or we can say we have to create these 4 endpoints. For example, if you have a resource called product. Now for this product, we can create get endpoint, post endpoint, put endpoint, delete endpoint. In the same way, if you have a user is one resource, then for this user's resource, we can create get endpoint, post endpoint, put endpoint, delete endpoint. So for every resource we can create 4 types of endpoints. Every endpoint is going to represent the functionality of your resource. Okay, so here, let me try to make it more simple. Endpoint represents resources. Endpoint represent resources functionality, I will say. Endpoint represents resources functionality. Resources are nothing but data of your application. Resources are nothing but data of application. For example, if you have e-commerce application. So for e-commerce application, what data you are going to maintain? You will maintain the data for product. You will maintain the data for users. You will maintain the data for order. You will maintain the data for payment. In your e-commerce application, these are the different resources for which we are going to maintain the data. Now for every data, we have to implement functionality. For example, if you have product, now for this product, we can implement multiple functionalities. Like we can implement a functionality where we can access the data of a products. We can implement a functionality where we can insert new product. For product, we can implement a functionality where we can update the product information. For a product, we can implement a functionality for removing the product. To remove the product. Now to implement these functionalities, we require different endpoints. For access part, we required get endpoint. For insert, we required post endpoint. For update, we required put endpoint. For remove, we require delete endpoint. So this endpoints represents resource functionality. So if you say get, it means on this product, what functionality you are trying to implement. If I say post, so on this product, what functionality you are going to implement. So endpoint represents resource functionality. Resources are nothing but data of your application. For example, if you are creating e-commerce application, maintaining product data, user data, order data, payment data. So all these are called resources. Now for all this, we have to implement functionality. How you can implement functionality using these endpoints. So always when you are creating REST API, you have to follow these three steps. The first step is you have to install Express package. Second step is you have to create HTTP server. And third step is you have to create endpoints. So in our case also, if you see, we have installed Express package. We have created our server. Now we are creating endpoints. How to create endpoint? To create get endpoint, if you want to create get endpoint, then we have a function called get. We have one predefined function called get. And this function is present inside this app object. Inside this app, this function is present. So how to access this function? We have to say app.get. In the same way, if you want to manage or if you want to create post endpoint, we are going to use this app object and we are going to access a function called post. If you want to create put endpoint, we have one predefined function called app.put. If you want to create delete endpoint, we have a function called app.delete. So very simple. So to create get endpoint, we have get function. To create post endpoint, we have post function. To create put endpoint, we have put function. To create delete endpoint, we have delete function. Every endpoint we are going to represent using a URL. Endpoints are represented using a URL. Every endpoints we are going to represent using some URL. So to create that URL, in our this get, post, put, delete function, we have to pass route path. So every endpoint is going to take one argument, and that argument we call as a route path. So that route path, how we have to define means we have to take here string, here also first argument string, here also string, here also string. Now this endpoint we have to represent using one route path, and that route path is slash. We have to start with slash and we have to provide here some content. So here I am providing something like get users. Here I am adding something like create user. Here I am adding slash update user. Here I am adding something like slash remove user. So now these are called route paths. So this route path will represent your endpoint uniquely. So this route path is used to represent certain endpoint uniquely. An entire endpoint we can access or we can represent using something called URL. So how to create this URL? To create the URL, the first common thing is every URL will start with HTTP. Then we have to add colon, then double slash. Then here we have to maintain domain name, but right now we are developing our backend application in the same system where we have our browser. So it will be localhost colon your HTTP server is working on which port number, that port number we have to mention. This will be common for every endpoint. For this endpoint also this is common. For this endpoint also this is common. And for this endpoint also this is common. After this port number, we have to add this route path. So here it should be get users. Here it should be create user. Here it should be update user. Here it should be remove user. So this is how we are going to create URL. Now this URL represents this endpoint. 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 Now, what is the use of URL? Using this URL from our client, we can send the request to this endpoints. From our client, using this URL, we can send the request to this endpoint. So it is something like this. So now what we have done, we have created our server.js file. This is our server.js file. Inside this server.js file, we created one HTTP server. Inside this HTTP server, now we have created endpoints. Endpoint 1, endpoint 2. Like this, we have endpoint 3 and 4. So I'm just keeping here 3 right now. So now these are endpoints. This is your HTTP server. This is your server.js file. Now you have a client. Now client can be anything. Client can be anything. So client can be your front-end application. It can be a Postman tool or it can be a browser. So let's assume that this time the client is browser. Now, if you want to send the request to this endpoint or this endpoint or this endpoint, you require the URL. So these URLs are going to represent your endpoint. Now, if you copy this URL and using this URL, if you send the request from your client, so using this URL, if you send the request to your client, so from your browser, first request will come to the HTTP server. It will check this server is running on this port number or not. If yes, then inside this server, which endpoint need to execute, that depends upon this route path, this part. So it will check get user /get user. Now this /get user is assigned to which endpoint it will check. Let's assume that it is assigned to this endpoint. Then that request will be forwarded to this endpoint. If you are sending create user, then first request will come to the server, then it will check that create user is binded to which endpoint. So that particular endpoint will execute. So like this, these endpoints, nothing but these route paths are very, very important. And whenever a request will come to this endpoint or to this endpoint or to this endpoint with this route path, then the second argument of this endpoint, that is one callback function, it will get triggered or it will get executed. So every endpoint will have one callback function. So here a callback function, here you have callback function, here you have callback function, and here also you have one callback function. It means whenever a request will come to this endpoint, this callback function will be called. Whenever request will come to this endpoint, this callback function will call. Whenever request will come to this endpoint, this callback function will call. And whatever functionality you want to implement, you have to implement here. In this callback function, you have to implement. And this callback function, technically, we are going to call as a route handler. This is called route path. This is called route handler. And every route handler will have access of two predefined objects called request and response. So every callback function will have, or every route handler will have access to two predefined object, that is request and response. Here also request and response. So using this request object, you can manage all request information which is coming from your client. Using response object, you can manage response. Here also request response, request response, request response. So in simple words, from your client, request will come to this endpoint. And whenever request will come to this endpoint, this function will be executed. From your client, if request is coming to this endpoint, then this function will execute. Now, all these endpoints, collection of these endpoints is called API. So collection of endpoints, we are going to call as a API. So collection of endpoints, we are going to call as a API. So it's not like this is one API, this is another API, this is another API. No, all these are called API. So every application will have only one API, but API can have multiple endpoints. Every backend application will have only one API, and API can have multiple endpoints. Every endpoint is going to represent some resource and operation on that resource. So here I have created 4 endpoints now. Now what I will do here, I will use this response object and access one predefined function called send. Now send is a predefined function which is present in response object, and using this send function, we can send some response back to the client. We can send some data to the client. So here I am sending one string type of data. So I will say get request received. In the same way, here I will say post request. In the same way, here I will add put request. In the same way, here I am going to add one more, that is our delete request. So we have post, we have put, we have delete. Now, if you want to send the request to this endpoint, then we have to use client application. Now, as a client application, you can use browser, or you can use a tool called Postman, or you can use any client-side application, which might be built on React or Angular or Vue or plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So as a client, you can use anything. You can use browser or Postman or any client-side application. Now that client-side application you might build using any technology. So now to test our endpoints or to send the request to our endpoints, we can use browser, and through browser, we can send only get request. Only get request is possible. Only get request we can send from browser. Apart from that, we cannot send any other request. But using Postman tool or client-side application, we can send all the requests. We can send get, we can send post, we can send put, we can send delete also. So if you want to test only get request, then browser is enough. But if you want to test all this, then Postman you have to use, or you have to use any client-side application. So right now what we will do, we will use Postman. So the first step what you have to do is download the Postman tool. So how to download Postman tool? It's very, very simple. The way we installed our VS Code, in the same way we can download this Postman tool also. Just go to the browser, and here you have to search for download Postman tool. Now, when you search for download Postman tool, you will get this first link, or else you can visit www.postman.com. Now click on this link. Directly you will land on the download page. Now here you have, as per your operating system, you will get the suggestion of downloading. Just click on this Windows. I'm just clicking here on Windows. Now if you see, .exe file is downloading now. Now it's very simple installation. Once it is downloaded, just double click on it. One wizard will open. Next, 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 install. That's it. Just you have to go through next, next, next install process. So everybody try to install it. It's very, 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 very easy installation. Once this tool is downloaded and installed in your system, then it will create one icon on your desktop. This is how icon will be. This is the icon of your Postman tool. Once this Postman is downloaded and installed, once this icon comes on your desktop, just double click on this Postman tool. It will open. Now, once you double click and open, you will find something like this: unlock Postman with an account. So no need of creating account. If you want to create, you can sign up here, or else you can simply close it. And when you close it, first time when you open, you will find like this interface. This is how the interface will be for you. This is how that interface looks like. Now here you have plus button. Click on this plus button. Now let's go to our server. Nothing but command prompt. Stop your server and restart it. Once it is restarted, now go back to Postman. Here by default get is selected. Paste your URL. So what is your URL? This one. So we are testing now get endpoint. So for that we will copy that URL. We will paste here. And now we will send the request. Whenever we send the request, our response will display here. Now here see, we got the response. So whenever you click on this end, one request will come to this endpoint. Whenever a request will come to endpoint, then this function will execute. In this function right now, what we are doing, we are simply sending one response. And that response we have received here. In the same way, suppose if you want to test post endpoint, first copy the URL, go back to the Postman. If you want, you can open the new tab. Just click on this plus, new tab will open. Now here by default get is selected. First you have to select post. Make sure you are selecting post, then enter your URL and send. So you got here post request received. Suppose by mistake you did not select this post. If it is get only, and here you are adding the post URL, then things will not work. It will give you error. So make sure for post request, we have to select here post, and we have to send the request. Now here we got post request received. In the same way, you can open one more tab and you can copy the put endpoint URL. I will copy this. I will go back here, select the put and add here. Click on send. We got the put request received. In the same way, for delete, you can copy this URL and here You can paste and select delete and click on send. You got here delete request. Now here we are able to test our get request, post request, put request, and delete request. All these things we are able to test. So here we have created APIs. We have created API, and for that API we have created 4 endpoints. Next, what we need to do. Now let's assume that this is my Postman tool. Postman tool. And let's assume that we created server.js file, nothing but backend application we created. In that, let's assume that we have created post endpoint. We have here post endpoint. Right now, what we are doing from our Postman tool, we are simply sending the request. We are simply sending the request. We are sending the request to this Postman. We are sending the request from Postman to this post endpoint. This post endpoint is sending one response back to the Postman tool. And that response we are displaying here. This is what we are doing right now. But what I want to do with my request, so from Postman, I will send the request to this post endpoint. I will send the request. With this request, I want to send some data. So from my Postman tool, with my request, I want to send some data. So this endpoint should receive our request. It should receive the request. It should receive the data from request. And then I want it should modify the data. It should modify that data and send modified data. Send modified data as a response back to the client. This is what I want to do. So what this endpoint should do? From this request, it should receive the data. That data should get modified. Once that data is modified, then this endpoint should send some response back to this Postman tool. So that modified data should send as a response. Response plus modified data. This is what I want to do. So first we have to receive the request, receive the data from the request. It should modify the data and send modified data as a response back to the client. So here, first we have to learn how to send the data in the request. We have to learn how to send data in the request. Then we have to learn how to receive the data from the request. Then we can modify it. Modifying the data is very easy. And then we have to send that data back to the client. So here two things we have to learn. First, how to send data with request and how to receive data from request. This we have to learn at client. This will be done at client. This is done at server. So for this, what we will do? First, we will use Postman tool. Once we are able to learn how to send the data from request using Postman and how to receive the data at server, once this part is done, then we will create one client application. We will create one form. We will create one simple form. In this form, we will create some fields. We will have some fields. Let's assume that we are creating 3 text boxes. And then we will have one register button. Now we will see if you enter the data, how this data we can send to our backend application. So we will have our backend application. We will have here our post endpoint. And now we are going to see how we can send this field data to this particular endpoint. Once this part is done, then I will show you how this data we can store in our database. How to store that data in the database. So this end-to-end part I will explain. Then we will see, like let's assume that you have stored lot of data here. Now how to access all that data? That part also we are going to see. We will see how to update the data, how to delete the data. So all the CRUD operations we are going to see. So people will call this CRUD operations as a project. So they will announce something like real-time project in the batch, and they will explain this CRUD operation and they will say this is the project. And within 1 week, they will finish the project. So this is not the right thing to say that it is a project. It is one of the use case in a project. This is one of use case in the project. But as a students, as a freshers, you are not aware about projects. So when they explain like this, you will think that yes, this is a project. But if you explain like this project in your interviews, they will never select you, because this is just one of the use case in the project. So like this, we have to develop lot of use cases. If you develop 8 to 10 use cases, then one project will be created. Then one project will be created. Okay. So first we are going to see with the Postman, and then we will see with this form, so that at least you will understand the use case in the workshop. So next session will be on Monday, guys. Okay. Or shall we take tomorrow session? Are you guys can attend tomorrow? So do you want next session tomorrow? So if you want tomorrow, I can take it. So can we have the session tomorrow? So I will just raise the poll in our WhatsApp community. So shall we have session on Monday or Sunday? So let's see what majority of people will say. Based on that, we will decide. Okay. So just after the class, I will raise that poll. Whatever preference you guys have, you guys try to respond. And based on that, by 10 p.m., I will decide and I will post a message in the group. So this is the URL, guys, from where you can access your notes. Let me just provide you the GitHub URL. Okay, let me create this. Let me clear this diagram. So here, let me go to workshop. Yeah. So this is the URL I'm going to provide. Here we have REST API development session 1, session 2 also I will upload. So this is the GitHub URL you guys will be able to access. And one more information I wanted to share, guys. So I have started my own VK AI Tech in Maharashtra. So I have started my own platform VK AI Tech in Maharashtra. So I'm just launching the first batch on React plus Next.js plus Tailwind CSS. So no one is teaching this combination in the market, and right now people are expecting this only. If you want, you guys can explore market. You can ask how much important right now people should have the knowledge on Tailwind CSS, Next.js, and React.js. And I'm thinking to include here React Native also. React Native also. I hope you guys are aware of React Native. So using React.js, Next.js, and Tailwind CSS. Using these three, we can develop front-end part of web application. Front-end part of web app, of web application. And using this React Native, we can develop mobile application for Android and iOS. It means no need to learn different technologies to develop apps for Android and iOS. Only you have to learn React Native to develop mobile applications for Android and iOS. And the best part is React.js plus React Native. Almost the concepts of React.js and React Native are same. So 60% of concepts, not 60, 60 to 70% concepts are same. So if you learn React, learning React Native will be very easy. If you learn React Native, learning React.js will be very easy. Why? Because 60 to 70% concepts are same. So I'm going to launch a batch on this stack with one major project. With one major project. So here only I will add with one major project. It's not a small project which I can finish within 1 week or 15 days. This major project will take almost 1 to 2 months. Minimum 1 month, or I can say minimum it will take 1.5 month to 2 months. I'm just saying about project. Project itself will take 1.5 to 2 months. And this part, learning all this part will take around same 1.5 through to 2 months. So almost this first batch I'm going to take for 3 to 4 months. So duration I wanted to take for 3 to 4 months. And sessions I wanted to keep from Tuesday to Friday. So instead of keeping from Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday, so I'm going to start with the pattern of Tuesday to Friday. Why? Because if you attend sessions from Tuesday to Friday for 1.5 hours, then you can utilize remaining 3 days only for practice. And based on my 7 to 8 years of experience, I have understood that taking 6-day sessions or 5-day sessions, course can finish early, but students will go out of head. Every concept will go out of head. Also, out of 100%, there will be only 20% students who will properly learn. 80% are just failing. This is what I have observed. And I have worked with one of the platform called Masai School, whether you have heard about this or not. If not, you guys can just search it, Masai School. There, they used to follow this pattern. So basically, it is a edtech company. So don't assume that school means it will be our school. It's not a school, just they have used the term school. So it's one of the edtech platform like your Upgrade and Edureka, like Coding Ninjas, like this. It is one of the edtech company which is very, very popular, Bangalore based. So here I have worked for almost 1 year, where I used to handle React for the people. And they used to have the schedule from Tuesday to Friday. And trust me, it used to work very good. So this model became very successful for them. So this is the reason I just wanted to follow that pattern because it provides successful. Okay. So again, this is the paid batch. This is not any free batch. So this is just information I wanted to share. In case if you are interested to learn all this part, then you guys can just fill this form which I'm going to provide. If you are interested, then only fill. If you are not interested, just skip that part. If you fill this form, at least I will get your data and then I can directly connect with you guys. So I just don't want to message each and everyone and irritate the people. Instead of that, I just wanted to take the data from the people who are interested. And if you are interested, then only I want to connect with you so that I can provide you this message. So if you are not interested, just ignore that form and you can freely attend this workshops. So I'm going to take a lot of workshop. My next workshop will be on MongoDB, which will go for next same 3 to 4 sessions. Then I am going to take a workshop on project building. So we have to build add to cart, remove cart functionality using plain HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So like this, lot of workshops I am planning. And I'm going to update videos on cloud, DevOps, JavaScript on YouTube channel as well. So slowly, I started building a lot of videos, like almost I have completed right now 40 to 50 videos. So now slowly those videos I'm going to update on YouTube. And I have kept that videos very short, like 5 to 10 minutes, one video. So one concept, one video, one concept, one video. So that the people who wants to learn a specific topics, they can easily learn it. So this is right now plan what I am trying to execute because I have started my own platform. Now I wanted to take it at next level. So for that, I wanted to work on that. So right now I have like left almost all the platforms where I used to do training. So just stick with one of the platform in Hyderabad and I am just working with Gigs for Gigs. So remaining all the platforms I left. So I nearly worked with 15 to 20 platforms as a freelancer trainer. So I used to just work 1 hour based on my availability and based on their availability. So now I left everything because I wanted to start my own part. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to share, guys. So next session, we will decide based on what poll result we are going to get by 10 p.m. Okay, I will just post in the WhatsApp community. Let's see what people are going to respond. Based on that, at 10 p.m. I will announce whether we will have session tomorrow or session Monday. Timing will be same, 7:30 only, but let's decide the date. It should be tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Yeah, so that's all guys from my end. If you have any queries, you can unmute yourself and you can speak up. In case if you don't have any queries, yeah, you guys can leave and let's meet in the next session.